With the Baltimore Ravens season officially more than halfway over, we talk about players on the roster that must step up in the second half of the year. All that and more coming up next here on this episode of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host here with you, Kevin Allstriker of Ravens Wire. Of course, you're with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here with us on this Purple Friday and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every single day. We are free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes over in video form on YouTube and wherever you get your shows in audio form. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Here with me is our Purple Friday guest, is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. And Q, the Ravens right now are 7-2. And if I had told you before the year, hey, you know what? 9 games into the year, this team would be 7-2. I think we'd both be pretty happy with that.
I think we'd be happy. I think we'd be ecstatic. Yet at the same time, it is weird because as this season has kind of unfolded, the 2 losses stick with me just simply because. So when they lost to Miami and Kansas City and the Bills, and they beat Kansas City, but they lost to Miami and the Bills, and they had these big leads and they were just blowing these fourth quarter leads. It was like, oh my God, like this team, what is it? This year, you kind of got this feeling of like a clean team. What I mean by that is you just see this, suffocating, dominant, communicative defense. You see an offense that Lamar Jackson is just in full control of the entire offense and what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And they're beating themselves. It's not like the other team is just coming out there and just setting the tone. They're beating themselves. So, you're like, you got Gardner Minshew. Like, what the brick? And then you look at, Kenny Pickett, who his ribs or whatever, and his foot and all kind of things that was bothering him in Pittsburgh. But, as much as TJ Watt had his great game and his counterpart had the strip sack and all the things, and it wasn't them. It was the drop passes. It was the missed opportunities that plagued the Ravens. So they played extremely well on the road otherwise. They had a crazy, weird schedule of going to London, taking care of business, coming back, playing at home, then to go back out on the road to play against Arizona. Then you come back home. And so all of that, their focus, their ability to rally together as a team is what I think has helped me just feel the love of this team. And I think the other, people in the flock feel the same. It's like, this is a different team. This is a special team. So 7-2 is more along the lines of like, man, we could have been 9-0. That's just the greediness of us all. But I think at the same time, it's cool that they recognize, those 2 losses are losses that they should have had. And for me, Kevin, it's they know they can't take it for granted.
Yeah, what they're doing this year is definitely special. 4-game winning streak, obviously a very big, I don't want to say exclamation point, because hopefully it's not over, but it was definitely a statement against the Seattle Seahawks, 37-3. That's just against a really good football team. You can't ask for much more, outscoring both the Lions and the Seahawks in back-to-back home games, 75-9. But we're halfway through the season. Well, now more than with the whole 17-game schedule thing. It makes it a little difficult because there's not really a halfway point. It's just a little bit under and a little bit over. But I think for the most part, you got to feel pretty happy about how most of the roster is performing. But there are always some players that need to step up a little bit more. Maybe expectations coming into the year were super high, and they just haven't lived up to those. Now, 2 really interesting guys, Q, play your position, your former position at wide receiver, Odell Beckham Jr. and Rashad Bateman. I'd say probably based off of the expectations. And again, I don't think anybody expected Odell to be prime New York Odell, 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. But I know both guys, Beckham and Bateman, suffered injuries early in the season, missed some time. But they're both starting to, at least on tape and on film and even in highlights, look better. The route running, they've moved Odell into the slot a little bit. I think that's helped him out. What's kind of your read on Odell and Rashad Bateman right now?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with your analysis. The fact that they're getting more and more comfortable. You could just see it in Rashad Bateman, like his ability to accelerate. And we saw that in the Arizona Cardinals game. And, that was a jet sweep that you would think Zay Flowers would be the guy to do it. But it was Rashad Bateman. And he accelerated past some dudes. That was impressive. But then he follows it back up. And I think for Lamar, he's probably kicking himself because he's like, man, I missed 2 opportunities for deep balls to Rashad Bateman. Like Rashad was like sent on some go routes, and bruh, like I've been there, I've done that, I've seen what happens when you kind of accelerate, you get that acceleration, like you just feel good, and he ran right by the defender. So ultimately, for him, it's the comfort of knowing that I'm healthy. It's the comfort of knowing that I'm confident and making different cuts. He's making difficult catches that we already knew he could make. But then at the same time, you look at Odell Beckham, and Odell is in a position where you kind of saw that feisty, fiery kind of side of him after they got back from London. And you just saw this guy, like every time he got up, he was really demonstrative in a positive way, like for the team. But I think for him, it was like, yo, man, I really want this. Like, let's do this. And that attitude was like, whoa, I think it's that leadership, it's that desire. And of course, in the Arizona game, there was people who, don't understand passion, don't understand, the desire to compete and be, a strong contributor to winning football. They saw him throw down the helmet. And all of a sudden, it's like, ow, Odell, what do we do? No, that's passionate. I want to play. I want to make plays. He wasn't pointing it at anybody. He was just frustrated that he's getting held and there's pass interference calls and all that. But man, like for his birthday and the way he set it up, for him to go out there and Snoop of all people was really cool to see him throw him that touchdown. But his route, Kevin, I'm telling you, like it was as beautiful and just clean of a route as it gets. And that's one of the harder routes to run in a confined space. And he looked like Odell of old. He looked like that guy that was a 1,200-yard, multiple touchdown receiver. I think this is going to bode well. And this is what, I was hoping for. As the season went on, guys got healthy and got better. And we're starting to see that.
Yeah, so I think you could say that definitely both those guys need to step up more, but I think they're on their way to doing that, especially with some of those points you mentioned. But one really interesting player, Q, on this offense is Ronnie Stanley. And when you talk about the Ravens offensive line and how good Ronnie Stanley's been over the course of his career, it's a little weird to me to say, well, on this offensive line right now, the weak link seems to be Ronnie Stanley. Now, the injury that happened all those years ago against Pittsburgh, that's never an easy thing to come back from, especially the severity that ankle injury was, multiple surgeries, multiple years missed, but doesn't seem like he can drop his anchor as well anymore. Got beat by Boye Mafe on the Lamar Jackson strip sack last week, got bowled over by Leonard Williams. I think Ronnie Stanley has had some great moments this year, but also some really bad ones. And I think this inconsistency from him is just new. It hasn't really happened with him because he's been so good for so long.
Yeah, and I'm not going to give him a pass only because of this. Like going into that game, this is a defense that was as stout as stout can be. You go back to the Pittsburgh game, you look at the way, the strip sack happened. It was because he opened up his shoulders really bad and, it just opened up the gate and off he went as far as the bad technique. And I think, again, when I'm looking at, this defensive front, I mean, there's some ballers out there. This isn't, some slouch, defensive front. But, again, he is Ronnie Stanley. And, he is the one who set the tone, rightly so, and it's okay that he set the tone as one of the more dominant left tackles in all of football. That's great. But it is disappointing that, unfortunately, we're seeing him, get beat the way he's getting beat. If there was a guy that I would say, I'm a little concerned about, it definitely is Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah, so I think he also just, again, good moments, bad moments, but definitely I think not what we're used to. So if he could step up, that'd be really key too. But come up in the second part of the show, we're going to wrap up the offensive side of the ball, players who could step up with a good one for Q. You don't want to miss that. Also move into the defensive side of the ball too. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on the show. But first, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. And if you're looking for daily fantasy sports, look no further than PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the most fun so many have had, winning up to 25 times the money this football season. All you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less than the projected stats, and place your entry. With basketball season here, there's a really exciting opportunity. You can pick now combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. So that's a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players in different sports or leagues. Maybe you're a LeBron James fan and you want to take the LeBron James plus Travis Kelce combo at a 10.5 combo with 3-pointers made and receptions. And you can play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find the community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. And plus, PrizePicks now offers a really cool reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So for example, for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So be sure to go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And this episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. And we spend a lot of time talking together. You and I, we get fired up together for Ravens wins and losses, who starts and who sits. And I'm really thankful for the communities we've built and the connection that we have. And today I want our chat to be a little more personal. Now with Jase Medical, you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. You realize what that means? You can bring on the extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster, a supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Viato prescriptions. And this is possible because of our friends over at Jase Medical. You can go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. And a verified customer had this to say recently about Jase, saying, "I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills and have to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered antibiotic kits. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone." So if you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having your supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. We're back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail. And you're probably wondering, what did I mean at the end of that first segment when I said I had a good one? I want you to talk a little bit about your main man. And I think you know who that is. Mr. Charlie Kolar himself. and Isaiah Likely. Now, with Mark Andrews, the Ravens are set there at tight end. But I think expectation-wise with Likely, I don't know. I thought he was going to be used a little bit more than he has. With Kolar, I mean, he's the third string, so you can take what you will with him. But with those two guys, were you expecting more based off of what they've done this season?
I'm okay. I did my meditation just now. I'm in my zen. The chi is flowing. All of those good things, because you just messed up the whole show. I think for both guys, yeah, I did. I had high expectations. Certainly, I thought, Charlie Kolar, the way he played against Cincinnati late in the year after missing the majority of the year with his foot injury. Obviously, Isaiah Likely literally coming in and playing strong and solid with a new offensive coordinator that likes to use the tight ends. I thought that this is a great opportunity for two young players to really kind of establish themselves. And they had strong training camps, so everything was trending towards this is going to be good. They're going to be good. Let's do it. But unfortunately, what we wind up getting is an inconsistent, drop, blocking assignment error. Just the play that doesn't line up to the expectations. And, other guys can probably have a low, like a Mark Andrews and having a bad Pittsburgh game, but you're still depending upon his resume and what he's done. They haven't quite established themselves. And it was interesting because earlier in the week, John Harbaugh was like, yeah, I could read Isaiah Likely. His body language says it all. You can see where he was, kind of, frustrated and a little bit down on himself because he wants more and he wants to, contribute more. And obviously he had a chance to catch the ball. And even, Charlie Kohler had a, great special teams tackle, but he also has been in on a lot of the jumbo packages and doing a lot of blocking extremely well. Both of them, if there was ever, guys that needed to step up and say that, this latter part of the year is going to be my time, my games to kind of establish myself. It's that. It's them putting themselves in that position to show up and to show out. It'll be great. And I think that they got the talent to do it.
Yeah. And I know, again, with Andrews there, it's not like you need Likely or Kohler to go out there and be the guy in that offense. But I think I was expecting a little more in terms of production. And, production goes both ways. I think they both have had their plays. But offensively, I think they're starting to find their stride. Now, defensively, this unit has been on fire since the beginning of the year. There's been no question they're the best defense in the NFL right now. And you look up and down the defensive unit, there aren't a lot of guys who you could say, well, this guy needs to step up or this guy doesn't. But there are a couple that maybe I had more expectations for that haven't necessarily lived up to those. And it's not all a bad thing. But I think one guy, Q, is Broderick Washington. Signed the extension before the season. And not like he's been bad. I'm not saying he has. He's been fine. But he has a sack this year, 11 tackles. But he hasn't really popped to me necessarily. I don't really know what the expectations you had for him were. I mean, Jase Medical has been balling out, but what's your read on Broderick Washington?
Yeah, I think if you look at the way he's been able to play, Kyle Van Noy, gets in there, strip sacks, and then all of a sudden, who's there? 96. Broderick Washington goes in there and is part of that fumble recovery and the whole flow and getting in the groove. I think at the same time, when you look at what he did when they were on the road against the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns, what do? They love running the football, being physical at the point of attack. And he handled his business there. But you're right. I think when you look at Beak, as they like to call him, he's been just spectacular. And right now, clearly on a Pro Bowl pace, but he's definitely in the conversation for all pro considerations. No question about it. So, you got this big light shining on the defense and just the way they've been able to play. I've seen at times where Michael Pierce has been like Johnny on the spot run stuffer as well. Obviously, the edge guys as far as Adafe Owe and, obviously Jadeveon Clowney and like I said, Kyle Van Noy. I think they've all been able to do what they do, but that interior of Matabike, Pierce, Washington, and Travis Jones, I think they've all done their roles and they've done it well. I just think that the light shining on Justin Matabike is just so bright that yes, I could see where Broderick, there's kind of like, well, wait a minute, are you playing? Are you doing? Are you all right? Are you hurt? What's up? But when I look at the film and I see him, I see a guy that, yeah, I might be occupying two guys. That means Roquan is able to do what he does. I might be, responsible for pushing the guard into the center. So now all of a sudden here comes, Patrick Queen looping around and getting the sack, or, a guy's coming off the edge and they can't turn protection or slide protection the other way because of my presence and of my play.
Yeah, and again, I don't want it to come off as I'm saying Washington's been bad this year because he hasn't. He's been fine. But I agree with you where I think Justin Matabike has just been that special this year. He's been that good this year where the spotlight is on him. And, The other guys are doing some dirty work and they're contributing to the defense, but they're not having the Matabike breakout because that's where everybody's focused right now. But cornerback-wise, Q is another interesting one to me because, look, we went into the season with Marlon Humphrey out with the foot injury. They were banged up at that position entering the year. They moved Brandon Stevens back there. He's been great as that second fiddle to Marlon Humphrey. But a lot of people expected that to be Rock Ya-Sin. And Rock Ya-Sin has barely gotten playing time. And it's not like it's a new thing. From the start of the year, he really hasn't been getting playing time. And again, I'm not saying that he needs to step up because, I mean, Baltimore has their corners right now. Arthur Millette's playing awesome. We know about Marlon and Stevens. Ronald Darby's given them some solid snaps this year. I mean, in the event of an injury, of course he would. But I don't know. The expectation was they signed to that $6 million contract. He's coming in to be a starter. And really, he's relegated to special teams duty, if anything, right now.
He needs to step up. Don't color this one. He needs to step up. I think you're right because of Arthur Millette. I mean, that dude has stepped up to the point where they're like, yo, we're going to send you to get to the quarterback literally every game. Like the last, 4 weeks, they've been sending him off the edge. And that's been a bonus. You talk about, Brandon Stevens, my God, man, like applause. Like, wow. Like, I want Rock Ya-Sin to step up. But at the same time, Brandon Stevens has stepped up. Like, he's earned the right to be in this conversation as a starter, period. But then you also look at, you said Ronald Darby. I think it's just a scenario where for him, it's like, hey, you know what? If I need to do what I need to do, get in there, be a part of whether it be nickel, dime, whatever, so be it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my job, and off I go. I think Rock has done that as well. We saw as far as like late in the game, where, the defense kind of settled in. They knew they were going to win. And, of course, that's where Rock Ya-Sin kind of got in and played some. It didn't play bad necessarily. It didn't do anything that was like, oh, my God, what is he there for? But, again, I'm like, mother of pearl, y'all did all this noise when it came to Marcus Peters and, not re-signing him and all that. And then all of a sudden you got Marcus Peters getting pick sixes, and looking really good in Las Vegas, and Rock Ya-Sin just looking like a guy. And I'm hoping that, Rock Ya-Sin turns it around and shows up. But for right now, you got to really say that the bigger picture is this secondary is good and solid and strong. But let us say who needs to step up? Rock Ya-Sin.
Yeah. There was a whole thing about Peters versus Ya-Sin. Could you bring both in? Was this going to be one of them? I know we talked about that, Q. Peters has had good and bad moments in Las Vegas, but Ya-Sin really hasn't done much of anything, if at all, with the Ravens. So
pick six is not a good moment. That's an amazing.
That awesome, is it. You're right. Yeah.
Game-changing moment. So what did Rock do?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking apples to apples. He got signed because why? He was supposed to be the guy, and the free agency thing. I'm not railing on him. I'm just spitting it out there and saying what it is. His play is like, where is it? Whereas, Marcus Peters starting and playing and doing. So that is something that, you look at Brandon Stevens is balling. And I mean, I don't know if we're going to go to the safeties. We can go to the safeties. But just strictly speaking, as far as corner is concerned, Rock Ya-Sin hasn't really been that guy.
I think all the safeties have done a good job. I mean, Marcus Williams, I guess the injury situation leaves something to be desired, but he's been awesome when he's been on the field. So it's not like he's playing poorly and injured. He's had some bad injury luck, and it's been I don't know, nullified, I guess is the word I'll use, because Geno's playing so well as the interceptions leader, where you want Marcus out there, but it's interesting. In the final part of this in the show, Q, I want to ask you about what they're going to do with the safety position, because Marcus Williams appears like he's going to be back against the Cleveland Browns to talk about how they can utilize him and preview that game, and a lot more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and it's the end of the year. We're coming up on that right now. And for me, I look forward to the holidays, but there can be some seasonal blues in there as well. This time of year can be a lot, and it is natural to feel some sadness or even anxiety about it, but adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all the stress and change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. And there are so many people who have benefited from therapy. There are plenty of things that can come of it, whether it's learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, can even empower you to become the best version of yourself. And it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma, it's for everyone. If you're thinking of starting a therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We're back rounding out Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail and Q. As I kind of alluded to at the end of that second segment, the Ravens have a good problem on their hands with Marcus Williams, Geno Stone, and Kyle Hamilton. Now, I think with those three guys back, now I'm assuming Williams will play against Cleveland, but maybe they want to take the cautious approach and say, we play 2 games in 5 days. We don't want Marcus Williams doing that right now. We're going to rest him against Cleveland to be safe and then play him against Cincinnati. But regardless, when Williams comes back, how would you utilize those 3 guys together? Because I think all 3 deserve to be on the field and be on the field a lot.
I'm telling you right now, like just looking at the list, not that Marcus Williams shouldn't be applauded for his efforts to get out there on the field. Clearly, the pectoral muscle, the hamstring, and all the things, and the breakdown. Obviously, even last year, going back to his wrist and all that. But Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone, from the way they have played, in my mind, like mother of pearl, like Pro Bowl safeties. Period. End of discussion. Marcus Williams is kind of in that rock your send category where it's like, man, we need you to step up. I'm not saying that he can't and that he's not talented and all that, but I still got a bad taste in my mouth after the Pittsburgh game where you just saw him, just because of the injury, he shouldn't have been out there. And I just haven't seen anything moving forward from him, whereas I have seen 2 guys that will go to the Pro Bowl, and Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone. So if you want to go ahead and say, well, what are we going to do with the 3 safeties? 2 guys that are Pro Bowlers back there, going to be on the field. I don't know. But Arthur Millette is balling just as well, getting to the quarterback, doing extremely well as far as his assignments are concerned. So you talk about 3 safeties. I don't know. But there's 2 guys that I'm seeing on paper. One of them just so happens to be leading the league in interceptions. That means that homeboy has been in the right spot at the right time at the right moment. Last I checked, Kyle Hamilton, he's like, bro, if you need me to go ahead and just come down in the box, I'll come down in the box. Not only will I come down in the box, but I have rushers on the sideline while I'm in the box, and I come in and just ninth inning and make the play while the rushers who are designed to be in the box and designed to be run stuffers and pressuring the quarterback, they're on the sideline getting some Gatorade. I'm up in here balling. What's up? Because the confidence level that Mike McDonald has in him. So, 2 guys, Pro Bowlers. What were we talking about with Marcus Williams? Oh, he needs to step up.
Wow, that's bold, Q. That's a bold one. Because I think, look, with Williams,
Pro Bowlers.
I think Geno Stone, well, Kyle Hamilton honestly might be an all-pro. I think he's playing that good. And you can make an argument for Geno Stone too. But for me, I think maybe what you want to do, because you're going to have a hard time playing base because you want to keep Roquan and Patrick Queen on the field. You want to keep Arthur Millette on the field in the slot packages. But then with the 3 safeties, is it some sort of a rotation? But then Geno Stone deserves much more. It's almost like the Keaton Mitchell thing, to a lesser extent, honestly, with Keaton Mitchell. But Keaton Mitchell earned more playing time with his play against Seattle in Week 9. Well, Geno Stone's earned more playing time the entire season. So do you move Kyle Hamilton to like a box, like a dime linebacker type role? Do you just bring him off the – I mean, there are so many –
That's where, to your point, because that's a very good point. When he was in there, for example, I think it was it Seattle's tight end? I'm pretty sure. I think it was either Seattle's tight end or was it Detroit's tight end? I think it was Seattle's. And all I know is both of them were really good, but he locked them down and took them out of rhythm. And so that's where, again, you can afford to say, oh, y'all going to go big. We'll go big in the secondary, bring in your third guy, but Kyle could play tight to the line, play your tight end, or check this out. Now, all of a sudden, you think I'm playing your tight end, come off the edge. He's already shown he's a good run stuffer, but then he's also shown that he can get to the quarterback as well. So there's some little details there that I think, to your point, makes it even more dangerous because of his versatility.
Yeah, they have so many different packages now they can run, whether it's pure base, 3 safeties, heavy secondary. You can do a lot with this defense. Now, some situations, the guy's going to be left out because they have so many good players on that side of the ball, and you can't put everybody on the field at once. And that's
Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone are Pro Bowlers, and we're talking about first-team All-Pro candidates.
Man, I'm interested to see how it plays out 100%.
Arthur Millette is balling. All I'm saying is Marcus Williams, that pectoral and that hamstring better be on point. I don't want to see where he's just half in it, half out of it. We need to see that dude be ready to go, because if he's ready to go, fine. Now we have a good issue, good problem to have, all those things. Until then, Geno Stone is leading the league in interceptions.
Yeah, I think you got to be 100%. And you have that luxury for the Ravens to make sure Marcus Williams is 100% good to go, because it's not like they're bleeding points from that position. Geno Stone has played at that. You talked about Pro Bowl level. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. But let's talk about this Ravens and Browns game a bit, Q. Week 10, Ravens are 7-2, Browns are 5-3 at this point. If the playoffs started right now, all 4 AFC North teams will make the playoffs. Last time these two teams played, Deshaun Watson had the shoulder thing about an hour before kickoff, hour and a half. Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets to start and looked like not a quarterback that was ready to start in that game. Now, it's a little different now. Deshaun Watson is back. Cleveland's defense is still great, but Mark Andrews has dominated Cleveland over the course of his career. Lamar Jackson's had plenty of success there too. These are the top 2 defenses in the league. I mean, how do you see this one shaking out?
You know, it's interesting too, because going back on my notes, you got to remember the injuries that Baltimore had themselves. And it wasn't like they had a full healthy offensive line. So Myles Garrett, you know, he was Myles Garrett, but yet at the same time, you know, they held their own. They held their own really big time. I believe Tyler Linderbaum was out of that game as well because of the high ankle sprain. So Ronnie Stanley, we say he needed to step up. I think, you know, Myles Garrett's going to be testing the hell out of him. And as Todd Monken said in his presser earlier in the week, we got to be really mindful of Myles Garrett, and hopefully he won't play, because I was like, man, talk about, you know, huge compliment. That's like, you know, back in my day when it was Reggie White, who you had to know where he was on the field at all times. But with that said, yeah, the Ravens, they got a better run game. I like what Justice Hill did, no question about it. I think it's even better when you got a 3-headed monster, you know, to really complement one another. You're absolutely right. You talk about Mark Andrews being a strong, you know, performance the last, 3-4 weeks. Ever since, you know, the Titans game. But then I also look at, you know, the way in which we talked about in the first segment with you know, Rashad Bateman and, you know, OBJ, you know, like I think this offense is starting to click and starting to gel. So it's going to be formidable. Obviously, it's a division opponent. Obviously, you got the better of them. They're going to show some wrinkles. What are your wrinkles? What are your plays that you have in that they can't necessarily anticipate you doing and be successful at?
Yeah, I think this one, I'm going to go close. I'm going to go 24-22 Ravens. What do you got, Q?
Yeah, you know, when I'm looking here, I just think it's the Ravens. It's a division opponent. I think because of the running game, I think because of the red zone production, man. I think if there was a score, I think because it's Deshaun Watson, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll say they put up, 18 points. But I think the Ravens, there's a determination factor from Lamar. I say it's 30-18.
Yeah, a good divisional game coming up for sure. Again, two top defenses. We'll see how the offenses fare. Hopefully Baltimore can continue the momentum they've had over these past two home games, and they'll come out of this thing with a win. 5-game win streak and move to 8-2. But Q, I appreciate you again. Thank you so much for hopping on with me. And again, hopefully next week, this team is on that 5-game winning streak heading into a huge Thursday night matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's going to be crazy, short week, but at the same time, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we'll see what happens. I appreciate everybody for tuning into the show today. Again, be sure to subscribe, follow along as well, video form, audio form, wherever you get your podcast. Coming up, we'll be right back here on Sunday after the game, talking about everything that happened in that Ravens and Browns game. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here then on Locked On Ravens.